Hey everyone, this is Hiil Street Soul, and you're tuned in to the core with DaMillennialCoach, discussing topics on real life. Check it out. Everywhere you go, don't forget the ghetto. Listen to the core.
What up, coaches? It's me, the Millennial Coach. Hope you're having a great week. London is turning cold. It's turned into winter, and I'm not ready. Most of the summer has gone. I think when you wake up and there's a glimpse of sunshine, I get really hopeful, and then it becomes dark. But I think the other day it was so dark that you didn't even know it was time to wake up. Like, it was like, it's too dark. So we are moving more into the dark. So welcome to the core. I am the Millennial Coach, and we're talking about the miseducation of interpretation. I think it's a very powerful conversation, and a lot of people don't tend to reflect on why they interpret information in the way they do. What are the filters that they live and breathe through? How is that impacting the reaction, the responses, and how are people creating scenarios in their life that I would say is slightly unfavorable to the longevity? I'm going to just move this a touch. It's a bit wonky. I can see. Remember, there's no camera people. I am the camera people. I am makeup. I am wardrobe. Can you see I did my lashes? Can you see? Right? So I am doing all of that. See, look at the hair's just not even hairing properly. See? Now, if makeup, hair, and wardrobe would actually come in, or someone can sponsor me so I can bring people on board, that would be really, really amazing. Whoever wants to sponsor me or produce the show, I'm more than willing to have a conversation. DaMillennialCoach@gmail.com. So please email me. Okay, so the miseducation of interpretation. It's been a heavy couple of days, but I am an accredited executive coach. Just FYI, that is actually true. I am an executive coach. And thank you so much. If it's the first time you're joining the show, welcome to the core. And if you're my favorite person who loves being reoffended, welcome back to the core. And also, I just want you to know that this is a show that provides information, perspective, and even if I promote certain shows or products or brands, it's just because I want to. I don't have to do things for money all the time. And I think sometimes you're going to benefit from some of the information that I give you. So not everything's about money. And people around me know what that means. And if you're someone who believes in energy, you know that God is always working in your favor. So I want to just start there. But before we get into today's show, I do want to reiterate, watch The Tower. But if you have never heard of the show, I had never heard of it, please watch it from season 1, because it's actually a really short season. It's only like 3 episodes. Season 2 is 3 or 4 episodes, and season 3 is 4 episodes. Please watch season 1, because you're going to really enjoy it. And yeah, brilliant show. Well done to the writers and to the actors. And they've got Jeffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in there, by the way, and he plays the character of Steve. You get me? So, I haven't even said my normal words. Let's get into today's conversation. Yalla, yenko, let's go. So, the miseducation of interpretation. I always call it the misinterpretation, but it's the miseducation of interpretation, day 4. So one of the things I want to talk about is communication and how we distort information through our communication. And it includes the first thing I said at the top of the show, filtering. We have filters, right? So the filters happen because sometimes we're trying to when our senses kick in when we're getting information, right? We're either trying to filter out the fear of conveying bad news. And so how can we recover from bad news? Or to please the receiver. But sometimes I think the third filter, I think, is just to understand. Sometimes it's like if, for example, you guys said you want me to do a live show, I would need to understand how that's going to benefit us all, and how long are you going to sit and listen to me, and what topics you want to hear, and why do you need to hear me? So you've got to, for me, it's about reasoning. And that's how, when I'm going through my filters, I always have to think, what's the reason behind what I'm doing? Something that I have been a fan of when I was doing my MBA, selective perception. So I have a degree in journalism, but also moved on to doing an MBA. So the receiver selectively sees or hears the message based on what they receive that actually impacts their needs, experience, background, and other personal characteristics. So selective perception is something that, you see, like, and I'm going to talk about the miseducation of interpretation from a race perspective, and I'll tell you why. Selective perception is rife in businesses because people are promoted because they have gone to the pub with that person. And this is something that has happened to me when I worked in the television industry. A boy started after me. I'd gone to uni. He's not got the same education and working in TV. I was working my socks off. But you know what saved me? I was reading Iyanla Vanzant. Gosh, can I remember her book? One of her books. It was one of her first books I was reading. And this is terrible. I always actually recommend it, and I've got a blank mind for some strange reason. And it was about just loving yourself. And honestly, it actually changed my perception of self-love. And it was about letting go of things, etc. And so I just stopped taking things personally at that time. And when they said, what happened? You've transformed, your new person. Because they were obviously, so what was interesting is, if you're going to the pub with these people, then you get the promotion. And I started drinking in my late 20s alcohol. I never really liked alcohol because it just never worked for me. I just didn't understand getting wasted and all that nonsense. And I never will understand it. Like, have a drink, feel nice, and then you're good. So I wasn't promoted. And so because I never took it personally and I was just loving on myself, they promoted me because I wasn't complaining. I wasn't getting emotional about what they were doing. Because at the end of the day, if people want to do wickedness, leave them to it. If people want to be spiteful, leave them to it. And if people want to have selective perception based on the fact they have the same background and then they want to promote their buddies, then leave them to it. You need to focus on yourself, right? Because the miseducation of interpretation is, because I'm someone who speaks up, then the interpretation is you're aggressive or you're a troublemaker. No, I just have an opinion about how I would like to work and how I would like to be treated in the workplace. Don't think that's too hard to ask, right? One of the other ways that we work in terms of interpreting information and communication and filtering is information overload. So some people have very limited capacity in processing data. And when you're processing data, you're trying to dissect what you need from the information and what you don't need, and also how you're going to implement the new information that you've learned if necessary. But the amount of information can exceed the capacity someone's brain can actually receive, store, action, and make that into production in their own life. So you need to also consider, when you're experiencing certain things like distortive, effective communication, it may be a result of information overload. The other thing that I would definitely say that affects and distorts our communication is emotions. Now, I am an emotional person. All Africans are emotional. We speak with our hands. We could say something and it sounds aggressive, but we don't mean it in the context that, and that's why I do understand why people marry their same religious sect or race, because you don't have to dissect what the person's saying. You understand from a cultural perspective the emotion behind the words, etc. So when Africans, we're very like, no, we're not. I'm not having it. Like, it's not going to happen. This is nope. That's very African. We're very absolute in how we speak. But when you're talking to people that are not African, they find it, oh, that's a bit abrupt. It's not that. It's just that a lot of Black people, I would definitely say, we're very straightforward. It's without an agenda. So when we say something like, you know what, how you're speaking to me, I'm not really feeling it. It's not that we want problems. We just don't like your tone. And then if you're talking to someone who's not Black, could you just change your tone? You know, and you're just thinking, what does that mean? So that's the thing, is distortive communication creates the miseducation of interpretation. I hope you're following me, because I need smart people in the room, right? Okay, so language. Language is a barrier to effective communications. Words mean different things to different cultures. So especially when we're talking, we say, you get me. That just means, you know, that is just me rounding it up for myself. But what I've noticed, even when you say you get me, and that's just it's just terminology. It's not, and it's also a rhetorical statement / question. When we say you get me, it's just part of our conversation. But when people say, yeah, I get you. But I use that now when I say, are you following what I'm saying? Is because sometimes when you explain things to people and where they've grown up, what they've been exposed to, you have to ask for clarification on understanding. In coaching, this is something you always have to do. You always have to replay what someone says to you and what it means for them, and do they have the right understanding? And that's the one skill that will actually add value to more impactful conversations rather than distorted conversations that actually brings a level of miseducation of interpretation. So communication apprehension, this is something that I've had, and it's like a bit of anxiety. So communication apprehension is when you are a little bit intimidated to speak in front of a group, or people who suffer from, I would say, a bit of anxiety, but in a space of being an introvert. Okay, so this, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. It may be a shocker to some, but I have introverted tendencies. Sometimes I actually get intimidated and get anxiety when I have to speak up, especially when I started working in leadership or management and I was in Dubai and I had to speak in meetings, and you should hear my voice like, and I want to, you know, because you are so anxious. So this is a thing, is anxiety distorts communication, and it actually creates nervousness, which sometimes can prevent you from actually speaking up or choosing to speak up. So I want you to really take into consideration, when you are communicating and there's a lack of education as to why you communicate the way you do, and so it's interpreted, I would say, incorrectly. Which one of these areas are you being impacted by? So let's go back. So are you filtering? And that's just literally looking for something bad to just try and process, or you're trying to please the receiver, and sometimes you're just trying to listen to actually filter what information is useful. Are you communicating through selective perception? Are you communicating in a way where you are experiencing information overload? Are you communicating from an emotional standpoint? And many of us, listen, I think 80% of the world communicate through emotions. Are you communicating through language that is misunderstood or misinterpreted? And are you or are you communicating through communication apprehension? So these are things that I want you to consider and think about. I am the Millennial Coach, and you can find communication shows below. Please subscribe, like, so this can get more views, and also please share this show with your friends, family, and even your frenemies. They may just learn something. I'm the Millennial Coach. I hope today's been helpful.